the Villa Rosa Kempinski in Nairobi. I'm treating myself after staying indoors for close to 3 months thanks to the COVID-19 lockdown. But I'm only going to places that practice strict hygiene because I want to be protected from COVID-19. And it seems like I'm not the only one. According to research, consumers have completely changed in the last 3 months. I will be talking to Serah Katusia, the Managing Director of MediaCom, to answer some questions for us. Who is this new consumer? How has their behavior changed? How can businesses attract and retain this new consumer? We'll be talking about marketing in the new normal. I'm Cynthia Nyamai. This is Power Thursday. Thank you very much, Serah Katusia, for joining us today. Let me just get straight into it. Tell us a little bit and paint a picture for us. How does this new consumer look like, this new normal consumer?
So, the new consumer is a consumer that is pressed for money and patience. And some Kenyans have completely lost their livelihoods. They are actually barely surviving. And that's a very majority of many Kenyans. Others have lost part of their income, so they have to ration what they spend. So they have to think harder in terms of what to buy, and they have to be very smart on where they want to spend. But there is a small percentage of Kenyans who haven't lost anything, right? So for them, they just yearn for the freedom to be able to travel, but the current situation holds back, so they're not able to do what they want to do. If you look at the numbers we have, and I think they are quite a bit accurate, is about 54% of Kenyans have got a salary cut. About 35 plus jobs have been lost. So they actually do not have money unless they're being given food by the government or some NGO or something like that. Now, younger audiences, especially those online, are reacting with very different kind of ideas. There's a lot of innovation. I saw a guy who's launched a socks brand yesterday, and I bought about 5 pairs of socks from him. And this audience has reacted in this space with innovation and activism. And if you look at how people are behaving online today, it's a very big shift. Why? Because they have more time, but more so because this space has taught them that they need to be able to speak about things that matter. I think we are seeing a lot of that coming to the fore. But at the core, Kenyans are more stressed about, taking care of their bills, so financial matters, more than they are stressed about health matters.
Thank you, Serah. Yes, financial does matter. What are some of the other issues that this new consumer, key issues, is looking into as they're making their buying decision? You've mentioned financial. Today, I was just at a restaurant, and I think that's the only restaurant I've been going to because of their strict hygiene rules. I would have never thought about that, say, 4 months ago, but I have noticed even for myself, I'm changing. What are some of the other key considerations for consumers?
So we are seeing a new, an emerging consumer, one with pressure to do more with less. And a majority of people do fall in this bracket, as I said, yeah. And so what are people doing? They are buying long shelf items. So, if I want to go and buy food, I have to buy food that will take me longer. So there's a lot of uncertainty. It's an ongoing shift, right? So if you're in a pandemic, we are living through this space where, as consumers, people are going through the motion, and the biggest fear is the uncertainty of tomorrow. And that is what drives every habit or every consumer habit we are seeing, whether it's I now buy my foods at the market because I've discovered I can save about 1,000 bob if I buy them straight from the market as opposed to the supermarket. Whether it's thinking, what are the luxury things? Cable TV, do I need it? No, I don't. I cut that off. Do I need to buy luxury foods? No, I don't need to. Do I need to buy a juice that is 500 when there's one that is 200? No, I don't need to.
Yeah. And would you say for marketers or even business owners, more than ever, data integration and analytics is becoming more important?
I think definitely, in a time where businesses have to spend less and they need to ensure they are very clear of what direction to go, data and analytics come to the fore. They are going to be guide marketers and businesses to make the right choices and to ensure they are doing what will give them impact today. We've seen some brands that really have a finger on the pulse of what is going on with consumers. I've seen Absa do such great work for across tier of their consumers. So if you're a high-end consumer, low-end consumer, they have something for you. Why? Because they have the pulse, right, their finger right at the pulse of the consumers. I think KCB, Coca-Cola, Glovo has done great in terms of what they've launched during this period. You can literally do everything on Glovo. Whatever you want to do, you can do it on Glovo, right? I think one of the other businesses that have always used data, and in this period they have come as a winner, is M-Pesa. M-Pesa have always used data to be able to know what to do and what products to innovate in, what spaces to innovate in. And now you can see what they're doing with small businesses and the things they're advancing to consumers. And it's only data that allows you to do that.
And as you're analyzing that kind of data, have you noticed new desires and also the fears that consumers are undergoing right now?
Yes, I think one of the things is cost. So if you are a client, for you is how do you attach value to the consumers, right? So how do you attach whether it's a perception of value or real value to everything you're selling? If I can buy the value of what you're selling, then I'm willing to put my money on it. So that value could be emotional value or could be physical value. I think one of the things we've seen a big increment online has been buying of vitamin C, multivitamins, right? Sometimes an emotional value in terms of a bank that is willing to have a conversation with you as a small business when you have a loan and say, hi, Cynthia, we know maybe you have this facility. We are willing to discuss with you. The emotional pressure that conversation takes out of a business leader is quite high. So you, as a business, you have to agree to sit and actually say, my business can give this much emotional value and this much physical value, and actually work very hard to deliver that value to the consumer.
It's interesting you say that because just over the weekend, I went to a restaurant. Nothing much has changed in the restaurant. And then when they gave me my bill, for some reason, and this has never happened before, for some reason I was a bit irritated because if anything, the price had gone high up. I think now when I go to any business as a customer, I feel like businesses should understand me as a consumer that I'm going through COVID, and maybe they should then lower the price. But I was very taken aback, and I learned a lesson that now consumers are really know exactly what they want. They are likely to be more demanding. How can we then change our business strategy, our marketing strategy, to be able to attract this new consumer who is more demanding and maybe even less forgiving? How do we then change our strategy to attract them and even retain them?
I think it's about being agile, being very nimble, and changing and shifting at the pace of the consumer. So the business has to be able to project and forecast what might happen in the next couple of months. So if there's a new shift in what consumers are doing, if you change later, then it's a bit too late, right? So you are now chasing the consumer. But how do you forecast and plan to ensure you're planning before the consumer? So for example, you're in retail business. You already foresee the fact that your tenants will be affected. So maybe your tenants are in a business that is hugely affected by COVID, right? So you know for sure their ability to pay rent will be affected. Then how do you have the conversation with these people prior to the discussion when they come to you and they're like, oh no, I have to move out? Is it about offering value? Is it about extending some credit? How do you do that before the issue actually comes? So you look at your consumer set. What is my target group? How have they been impacted? Analyze their needs today. Some people who've been impacted and they really just are surviving, they need relief. They need actually ways to survive. Someone who's been halfway impacted needs a reassurance that life is going to be better. Someone who's not been impacted at all just needs release. So even the content you give them is very different. And therefore, for these consumers, you have to be able to create products and communication that fit the needs of that consumer at that moment. If the need, if I'm a lower end consumer who's struggling to survive, and you're a brand that creates communication to this consumer that is about release, the consumer is going to be confused because for them, they're looking for relief. So you have to be very clear what your target group has been impacted, create scenario planning for that target group, but even go further as you're creating communication to that audience, ensure that communication is very aligned to the needs of that audience. I saw an ad the other day for Mask, the logistic business, and it was such a beautiful video about uncertainty and how they, business, are helping other businesses ensure and reduce that uncertainty. So if you're a manufacturing CEO and you see that piece of content from Mask, you really feel confident that these people are a partner to have in my business, because I will be sure that my product will reach whichever side of the world I want it to reach, because they do a good job. So from product to communication, everything the marketer does must be aligned to the need of the consumer at that specific time as the pandemic continues.
You've mentioned difficult times, and it's also difficult times for businesses. And a lot of times what businesses do is to fast cut costs. What would be your advice to businesses right now who are cutting costs and are thinking the first place to go to is probably communications and marketing? Is that the right decision? Is it time to cut, or is it time to increase?
So you say most businesses cannot really manage the same media budgets they've had in the past. That's a fact.
Yes.
However, without investing, brands will see a decline in sales and in affinity and brand metrics in this time, right? So it's a time for balancing. So it's a time to invest in the right things as we plan what tomorrow looks like. So there are some categories that actually are doing the right thing and they will see growth, like online businesses. They're actually seeing a growth. But even with the tough time, without any marketing and any communication, most businesses will either decline or even die. But we know that media has become very overwhelming to consumers. Why? Because when you go on TV, all you see is COVID that, COVID this, COVID that. So it's quite overwhelming. So it's also very critical for brands to spend more time in developing and curating content that will stand out in the media space that is already cluttered, that is fit for their target dynamics, and that does not add to noise and clutter in the media space already.
Okay. Talking about inexpensive ways of advertising and marketing, and also thinking about a lot of people now at home, a lot of people are spending a lot of their time on their phone and online. Is digital the way to go? Should it now have even, should there be more research? Should there be a bigger budget for businesses when it comes to using that platform?
I think, all at-home mediums have grown. At-home mediums being digital. We've seen a growth of something like YouTube with over 60% in Kenya only over the last 3 months. We've seen a growth to 20 to 25% of TV. So at-home mediums are continuously going to grow. Now, there are two things, however. Consumers are going to digital either for utility or for content for entertainment. So even as a brand, and as you invest media and money online, you have to ensure, one, are you giving utility? So are you helping me do something better through this period? Or are you giving me entertainment that helps me release during this period? And are you being relevant at that space? Digital is a good space. It can go completely bad if you do not invest in the right thing. Today, I saw a piece of content on Instagram that was completely off, just off the mark. And I felt that this person has invested money in this content, but it will not build their brand. It will actually do the exact opposite. So it's a medium that we must go into with a lot of strategy and ensure we are ready and we are doing the right thing for the target audience that is online.
What are some of the, and I like that you brought up the message that you saw on Instagram, but what are some of the messages right now that can really turn off consumers at this time?
I think one is really assuming the space where your consumer is, and therefore your message feels like you're taking advantage of the situation. That is one.
Yes.
But then we've seen brands that really win and doing the right thing online at this given time. I think Netflix has done a brilliant job, especially culturally relevant nuances online. And the problem with online is sometimes the mood shifts very quickly. So I'll give you an example of, let me think of a brand that does very well online. I think KCB does very good on social,
Yes.
right? So they're speaking to the consumer, they're speaking to the consumer in their consumer speak. They do not ignore any question, any comment, they reply, and they do a very good job replying. And I think it's very important for consumers to feel heard in this time. So most young people, you are online, but you're at home. You are under pressure. You either lost your job, or you've lost part of your salary, or you've lost your household. And you also are you are closed in a house. You have to live in your house. You have to work from home. So you're already undergoing a lot of pressure as a person. And you're looking at online as a space to go out, release, and engage with brands. And most brands at engaging with consumers in a human space, right? So they struggle to be human online. But the winning thing is about being human and allowing yourself to make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and actually do better from those mistakes.
To my last question, you've mentioned uncertainty, and that has completely changed consumer behavior. But let's just say we find a cure for COVID-19. This new, consumer that we are seeing right now, are they likely to go back to old settings?
I hope we never go back to old settings. That's my point of view, honestly. This period, however tough, has some good lessons, right? Brands have become more human, more customer-centric. Activism has given the world very profound lessons, very profound wins. And this we should not lose. We must not really go back to what the old is. I feel like it will be a new world. However you look at it, it will never be the same again. And I think I was watching a Nat Geo documentary about the last pandemic, and the world was never the same. For a long time, it was never the same. And I really hope we don't go back to our normal ways, that we learn to be more human as people, more human as brands, more human as governments. I think this is one of the times that people have learned to connect better, to call their parents, to call their relatives, I think I speak to my parents more now than I ever spoke to them before. I speak to my siblings, to my friends. I conscious about human connections now more than ever. And I hope we do not lose that. We don't lose that love that the pandemic has brought us as people. We don't lose the innovation, the innovation and agility that the pandemic has brought us. I hope we do not go back. I do not want to go back to a normal world.
Thank you so much, Serah, for joining us today. I like the way you've summed it up. Brands have become more human. And that's definitely a question that you should ask yourself as you're running your business. Is your brand more human? Are you responding to the new behavior of the consumer that we are seeing today? Are you able to still communicate to them and meet your needs? Remember, this is Power Thursday. Catch up with us on your YouTube channel every Thursday from 3 p.m. Thank you.